Hey, Utah Mammoth fans, tusks up, and welcome into another Utah Mammoth Daily. So, it has been a rough stretch. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It has been rough, but let's take a perspective check here and look at where the team is and how they've performed. In the past 4 games, so that's possible 8 points total, Utah still has 5 points out of those 8. There's not a single regulation loss. They do have that one win against Buffalo. And yes, I understand it has been almost a month since they've beaten a team not named Buffalo. But it could be worse. It really could be. The team stormed back against San Jose in a game that I didn't think they were going to score a single goal. And they had a chance to win it, if not for lazy play from, well, this guy, unfortunately. And when you're in a skid, all of the mistakes are magnified 1,000%. All of the fans jump on your back about anything and everything. And it's just frustrating for everybody. So I just wanted to give everybody here a perspective check and remind that Utah has still gotten 5 points out of a possible 8. They've only dropped 3, and that's 3 regulation wins that they could have had. Do a couple of these overtime losses hurt? Yeah, especially against the Ducks and again against the Sharks when they got goals disallowed against them. I'm still going to stick with what I said yesterday, though, and say the refs are just bad. I mean, they just are. That wasn't goaltender interference. It just wasn't. Gunther was pushed into the goalie. Is what it is, though. You can't let that break your mental, and Utah didn't this time. They didn't allow it to break their mental. They got those 2 goals. They still had a chance to win, so that's better than it was last year, or even earlier this season, where that would have just broken their mental. They would have allowed in a cheap goal, and they wouldn't have even made it to overtime. So there are improvements. The mistakes are kind of papering over those improvements because a lot of them are so glaring. So I do just want to remind everybody that Utah's still getting points from these hard and tough to swallow losses, but they're still getting points, which, as has been said by Dom Moore repeatedly this season, you need to bank these early season points when you can because they're going to matter come April. And he's absolutely right. And Utah is still banking some points here. So I just keep the positive vibes, man. It's not doom and gloom, right? Goodness gracious. All right, let's move it on along. So there are no gimmies in this season's NHL. There are only 4 teams right now currently that have not achieved 20 points a month into the season, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Even the teams that were expected to be in the lottery this year, the Blackhawks, the Sharks, the Ducks, they're all performing very, very well. And so games that you might have thought were, oh yeah, we got more talent than them, we're just going to win. That's just not happening. Those 4 teams, 3 of them are actually in the West, believe it or not, and 2 of them are in the Central Division. So what we've got here is a hyper-competitive NHL landscape where, yes, there are the favorites, Colorado and Dallas, unfortunately, in the Central Division, but they are buzzsaws right now, and they are just mowing everybody over. But an interesting factoid I want to bring up about the Stars and the Avalanche, neither team has had a road trip longer than 2 games. Dallas is about to embark on a 4-game road trip, so that's their first extended one of the season, and the Avalanche are slated for one later this month. So they do have really good points. They've gotten really good results. Their Stars are clicking on high levels like they're supposed to be, but the schedule has leaned a little bit in their favor. Whereas teams like, the Mammoth, because we're seeing it up close and personal, that's the one I'm going to bring up, but teams like the Mammoth have had multiple super long road swings and maybe a drop-off at home, a game or 2 at home, and then back out on the road for another huge road trip. So thanks, Ryan Smith, on that one, too, by the way. The Delta Center is not an entertainment venue. I don't care what you say. It's a sports venue. But that's kind of where we're at. That's just the nature of the season. I'm not making excuses. It's just an interesting factoid I wanted to bring up to maybe lend more information to you so that you can kind of see what Utah is having to deal with versus teams that have better records and have been performing better. I saw that and I went, wow, I didn't think about that. But those teams that are near the top haven't really had extended road trips yet. And as we get deeper into the season, that's going to flesh out because Utah, as I've said multiple times, will have super long homestands in the months of February and March. So that's really good to know as well that Utah is still banking these away points. It's a long season. We're in a skid right now, but there's actually a lot good going on. It's just the losses hurt. And speaking of losses, depth issues. Alexander Kerfoot's injury, I think, is bigger than anybody is really talking about. Without him there, he is a Swiss Army knife of a player. He plugs a lot of gaps and a lot of holes that Utah just can't right now. They're mixing and matching these lines. The penalty killers, we're throwing out guys like Logan Cooley on the penalty kill, where that would normally be Alexander Kerfoot. So I think his injury and extended absence is a bigger story than anybody is really discussing right now. And I'm not saying if we put Alexander Kerfoot in the lineup, Utah's going to go on another 7-game winning streak. I'm not saying that. But what he would do is he would lend balance and a sense of calm to the team that they just don't have right now when things start to go against them. And so having somebody like an Alexander Kerfoot out there with a J.J. Peterka, which we don't really need right now because that line of McBain, Krause, and Peterka is doing really well. But if you put him out there with a Dylan Gunther, for example, it helps calm things down a little bit because he's going to be in the right place at the right time more often than not. And you're not over-relying on an offensive skater to play defense. So it's something I saw and I've been thinking about recently because at the start of the season, we thought we had it all figured out, right? You had the Keller, Schmaltz, and Hayton line. You had the Cool and the Gang line. And then you had two high-energy lines that maybe could spot you a goal or two. That hasn't really worked out. Andre Tourigny's blending things together, trying to tinker and tweak things. And in some instances, it's working. In others, it's not. And do you just go back to what was working during the winning streak? Or has the NHL figured out what was working for the Mammoth? And the Mammoth players and coaches haven't figured out how to pivot and do something different. Because I'm sick and tired, much like most of you are, of just seeing 2 goals a night. And if it weren't for J.J. Peterka, there would have been 0 goals against the Sharks. So what needs to happen here is maybe getting back to the basics. Young players will always revert to skill to try to break out of a slump. And we've seen it with Keller. We've seen it even with Peterka. They just try to skate the puck in 1 versus 3, and then they turn it over, and it's an odd man rush the other way. We've seen that a lot. What they need to do is just do the simple play. Whatever that simple play is, doesn't have to be dump and chase, but the east to west 50-foot passes, those just aren't working as much. And even if the puck gets into the offensive zone from those passes, it usually ends up in a turnover anyway. So the system lends itself to being a good defensive system. We've seen that with the shot attempts being among the lowest in the league. But the shot attempts that are being allowed are grade A chances off of broken plays, puck watching, and just bad shift changes. So you got to take the good with the bad in the NHL. That's what's happening. I know they see it. I know all the players know it. They just need to execute and have mental fortitude to be able to do it. And I don't know, but I prefer these issues and challenges happening in November rather than in February or March during a playoff push. So I'd rather them happen early season rather than late season. I don't know about you, but that's what I would prefer. And lastly here, what's coming up? Well, more difficulty for the Mammoth. The schedule doesn't really get much easier for them. They've got a homestand with 2 games, funnily enough. That's just how the schedule worked out, I guess, against the Vegas Golden Knights. And then they also have the Hockey Fights Cancer Night against the Rangers. Man, I wish I could go to that game. That game's going to be so good. Not just for what's going to happen on the ice, but just for everything that Hockey Fights Cancer is about. I wish I could be there. and then a game against Montreal, a potential revenge game for the Mammoth, and then they go back out on the road for 6 games in 8 nights. So this road-heavy beginning of the season stinks, but if you could bank some points like they have during this road trip, bank some points, that's really good because you're going to have a lot of home games coming up. So it's a tough road to hoe in the NHL, especially this season where only a few teams have less than 20 points. Every team seems like they're in it to win it, and there's no real sellers that you can point to and be like, yeah, there are a couple of players there that would instantly improve what Utah is trying to do this season. What needs to happen here is Clayton Keller needs to be more vocal as a leader. He needs to get off the ice at the end of a shift, especially in overtime. I'm not letting that one slide. He may still be my favorite player on the Mammoth, but I'm not going to let that slide. He needs to prove that that was a mistake and it's never going to happen again, and that he's going to elevate his game to show everybody the player he actually is, and that was just a brain fart and it's not going to happen again. That's what needs to happen. They need to show that they've learned from these lapses, because playing 55 minutes of really good structured defensive hockey means nothing. Because in those 5 minutes, you're going to allow 3 to 4 goals because those mental lapses are so egregious. So that's how I see it. I hope that's how you see it too. Please hit that subscribe button. Tusks up, and I will see you guys tomorrow.